Okay, good morning and welcome to our webinar entitled Connecting London, Laying a Smart City Foundation with LED Streetlights. We're very excited on this webinar to be profiling the City of London, UK's Smart Streetlight program. A few things we're going to talk about today are some of the challenges they encountered and how they were overcome, the cost savings and operational improvements that resulted from this project, and how the project positions the City of London for future smart city initiatives. My name is Amanda Smith. I'm a director at the Canadian Urban Institute and director of the LS Network program, and I'll be the MC for today's webinar. And we're really excited to have some great guest speakers with us today. We have Andy Rogers, a mechanical and electrical engineer from the City of London, UK, Stuart Wilson, Director of Urban Control, Brian McGuigan, Commercial Director, Smart City Solutions at Silver Spring Networks, and Alanna Coombes, the Place and Future City Office, City of London, UK. So thank you very much to our speakers for being with us today, and thank you to all of you on the phone for joining. We're looking forward to today's discussion. So just a quick agenda. This webinar is scheduled for an hour, and I'll start by giving you an introduction to the LS Network program, so the program that's facilitating today's discussion. And then we'll get right into City of London's story and hear from Andy, Stuart, Brian, and Alanna, who will each give us their perspectives on this exciting project. And then we'll have time to answer your questions. So there's a chat button, chat window on your screen, so please feel free to ask questions as we go, and we will answer them all at the end. And lastly, our Twitter information comes up on some of these slides, so if you feel so inclined, please give us your comments through social media as well. So just a bit about the Canadian Urban Institute. We're the convener of today's call, and we're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. We've been around for almost 30 years, and we're dedicated to supporting healthy urban development. And one of the ways we do that is by convening conversations such as today to share information and lessons learned to help support a healthier urban environment. One of our key programs is this LS Network program that's the facilitator of today's discussion. I'll tell you a bit more about that, but it was started to help accelerate the adoption of LED street lighting and later connected lighting for intelligent communities in Canada, and moving to use that as a backbone for creating smart cities in Canada. And so this program is an initiative of the Canadian Urban Institute. And yeah, just a bit more about this program. So it's been around for about 10 years and was started at the Atmospheric Fund and was really focused on, in the beginning, on LED street lighting conversions when it was still kind of a newer thing. The program then migrated to the Climate Group and then landed at Canadian Urban Institute in 2012. And as we've seen the market really start to shift towards the incorporation of LED street lighting, the program has expanded, and now we're helping municipalities to, for example, design and deploy digital master plans to improve their quality of life at work, home, and play. So expanding beyond just talking about street lighting to talking about smart cities in general. Next slide, thank you. So I think most of you on the call know about the benefits of LED street lighting, but obviously they have significant energy, carbon, and cost savings benefits for municipalities. So this graphic here just shows our estimation if all of the streetlights in Canada were converted, some of the benefits that we would expect to see. And if controls were added to those installations, we could see these numbers increase by up to 30%. So significant energy, carbon, and cost savings available for implementing this technology. So another way that we help municipalities implement this technology is by providing and creating resources. So the Lightsabres program in its 10 years and now LS Network has produced over 20 resources that are all available on our website. So these include guides and primers and case studies. The case studies document specific municipalities, their implementation of technology, and the benefits that they realized. And these are all available on our website at lsnetwork.org. And just a couple examples of some of these resources that might be helpful to you that are relevant to today's discussion is we have a resource called the LED Streetlight Scale-Up Guide, and it would walk a municipality through all the things you'd need to consider when converting to LED street lighting. So, building the business case, running the procurement, managing the installation, and monitoring and commissioning, financing the project as well. So that would be one example. We also have a guide on incorporating adaptive controls, and a guide on building intelligent communities with advanced street lighting. So once you've got that street lighting, intelligent street lighting system in place, what are the other opportunities, smart city opportunities for your community? And as well, we have a range of resources on using LED lighting in parking facilities, both interior and exterior. So yeah, please check out our website if any of this is of interest to you. And one more resource I just wanted to share with you here. We're just going to change the screen here quickly. So this resource we've created over the past year and a bit is the Canadian National LED and Connected Streetlight Map. And this is an ongoing inventory that we are creating of LED streetlight projects and projects with adaptive streetlight controls in Canada. And so we're wanting to track and kind of celebrate the benefits of conversion to LED street lighting across Canada. So the map shows the projects that have converted or committed to convert, and also shows projects that have incorporated adaptive controls, the savings that they've realized, and where you can get more information on these projects. So this is an ongoing effort for us that we want to continue to track this transition. So if you're on the phone and aware of any projects that aren't here, we'd love to hear from you. As I said, we keep this as an ongoing effort to track this transition across Canada. Okay, and lastly, I'd just like to tell you about a few in-person events that we have coming up. The first is March 5th. We're having a seminar in Toronto we're calling Smart Planning Our Smart Cities. We're going to have the Chief Technology Officer from Vancouver and the Chief Transformation Officer from Toronto, and really talking about the importance of planning and incorporating a city's needs and priorities when implementing technology solutions for our cities. So the importance of planning and creating smart cities. And then we have two workshops coming up. One March 8th in Caledon, Ontario, and the second April 25th in Vancouver. And these will be sharing lessons learned from a decade of LED streetlight projects and talking about financing options, case studies, and providing information on LED streetlight conversions. So for those municipalities who have not yet converted, these would be good opportunities to learn from the success of others. So all of this information is available on our website, canurb.org. So please check that out. And lastly, we'll be providing a new guide on best practices for smart city master plans. So that will be coming out through our website soon. So I'd just like to conclude by thanking the sponsors of our program. They are Natural Resources Canada, Current powered by GE, Cree, Census, and Amoresco. So thank you very much to our sponsors for making this program and today's webinar possible. And if you'd like to connect with us, there's some contact information here, our website, lsnetwork.org, and my colleague Geneva Starr would be happy to hear any questions or feedback you have about today's discussion or any questions about our upcoming events. Okay, so now it's my pleasure to get into today's case study. And I'm going to introduce our first speaker. So we have Andy Rogers from the City of London. Andy is currently a mechanical and electrical engineer with the city, and he deals with the day-to-day management of exterior lighting, illuminated street furniture, and other M&E services. He is also responsible for the design and implementation of new M&E schemes associated with environmental infrastructure improvements. So Andy's going to set the context in today's discussion, including describing the unique characteristics of the City of London. So Andy, thank you for joining us, and we will transition the presentation to you now.
Okay, hi everybody. Yeah, Andy Rogers here, like M&E engineer, but looking a lot on the street lighting side. So just to set the scene a little bit, the City of London is the square mile, as it's called. It's in the heart of London, and it contains really the historic centre of London, and is the primary business and financial centre of London as well, if not Europe, and maybe beyond there as well. It's unique in the way that it has both the old and the new infrastructure there. We have the Old Bailey, St Paul's, Barbican, all well-known old landmarks, plus we now move on with the newer buildings such as the Walkie Talkie, the Gherkin, the Cheese Grater, all buildings which are worldwide, world known. And then we move on, we have the older buildings, again the monument for the Great Fire of London, and one of the most iconic bridges, Tower Bridge as well. So it sets the scene as it's a great mix of old and new, modern and classical styling, etc. on there. So with these buildings, with the old and the new, this leads us into different types of layouts. It's not a traditional layout in other cities where you have straight lines, long avenues, wide streets. We have, from the medieval street pattern, narrow, tight little streets, short buildings, tall buildings. We have little alleyways, little hidden nooks, little hidden crannies. So everything, there's nothing set straight lines. Everything is a little bit curved, a little bit different, quite a lot of hidden places. It gives you that very old historical feel. Yet you move on to that, and then straight away you can get the large urban canyons, as we're calling them, the spaces between buildings, as now most people, because space is limited in the city, so everybody is going higher, is going upwards, using the most amount of space for the tallest buildings they can. So we have a lot of these urban canyons, which we said before, which is quite unique in the way that you have narrow streets, but you look up and you just, sometimes the sky's in there because the buildings are so tall. So this gives two different feels to the city as it moves along. So, and what is unique to the city is there's probably approximately about 9,001 actual residents in the city, but during the day and the evening, the transport hubs in the city itself, with people coming to work, there can be over 450,000 people actually in the city at one time, moving around the city, which gives, as you can see by the layout, the medieval streets and the canyons there, moving people around, especially at night when we've got our street lighting on. This almost forms for us that everything has to be a conflict area. That's what we call a conflict area. So we're always engaged in lighting ourselves to the highest level we can to ensure safety. And we've come to the point where we realise that because of the age and condition of our stock, which a lot of it was over 30 years old, that it was really reaching the end of its serviceable and maintainable life. And also with this as well, we had our control system, which was a cyclo control system. That again was at the end of its life. And for this, there was no real replacement. It would have to be a total exchange, get the old system out and put a new system in. So we were looking at this, and we also had, obviously, to reduce our maintenance costs, by putting in the new equipment, and then that would save them with maintenance visits and also scouting visits, which is quite a drain on our funding. And then we're also looking to reduce energy consumption for both cost saving and environmental reasons as well. So that's where we're looking at introducing LED to sort of straight away make about 60, or we've got approaching up to 60% worth of energy savings. And then also with the new lighting, the city's looks quite forward in our lighting of open spaces, urban spaces, the public realm. And changing to a new system, the LED system, will give us that greater control over the lighting, and then going forward onto a CMS system, that will give us even greater control of lighting levels, adapting these levels, and then just really working with our planners and working with the architects to set a scene, to have a really good look and feel scene around the city. So as you can see by this slide, this is really how we laid out the rationale for deciding which lanterns we were going to use, and then also going forward which CMS system we're going to use. So it's quite simply, we're looking at the unit costs, maintenance costs, its performance, obviously its energy rating, visual design, because the city, we're looking at something which, when people were looking upwards, yes, you could see a light, but the actual lantern itself, we want to sort of disappear into the building. So that was quite important to us. Obviously the control management system, the integration, how we were going to use that around the city, how that would fit in with various areas in the city. And as you say there, ability to change lighting level, that's quite important to us, because we realise that we want to adapt our lighting, we want to profile it to reflect what is happening in the city at certain times in certain places, because the City of London itself has got many different classical areas. We have the Guildhall area, you have the Barbican area, we have train stations, Fenchurch Street, and the tube stations, Bank, Moorgate, etc., where there's a great number of people moving at different times. So we want to use this to reflect the right lux levels, the right uniformity at the times they're moving, and then when the street is quiet, we can dim these lights down to the levels we require. And there again, with the procurement of the CMS system, we have actually trialled quite a few systems. So part of that is our service levels and our reliability. So we have, like I said, trialled quite a few systems. A lot of times people were quite enthusiastic that their system would work and it would and get the results we wanted, but quite quickly with a lot of systems we found, because of the nature of the city, the way it's laid out, the small alleyways, the streets, the number of buildings, the construction material of the buildings, the steel, the metal, the concrete, etc. We were really struggling to find a system which actually carried the signal where we wanted and when we wanted. And also we were sort of learned as we were going along that with the CMS, with the central management system, then we're coming in with the smart city options, which would open for ourselves as well. We can now use that system to do a lot of things. Like I said, we can control, we can dim, we can have energy readings at the point of use, so we don't have to. At the moment, we use a system where it's sort of burning hours, so it's a calculated system. Using this new system, we can have a real-time energy usage system, and then also it opens the door for other people to come in and use with whatever sensors they are, which I think most people know the standard ones about pollution, air monitoring, monitoring of traffic, monitoring of pedestrians, etc. So it allows us to open this up. And the last point there, the cyber security, which is obviously for the city, the same as everywhere else, but for the City of London, because of the financial dealings, the business dealings, etc. Whatever system we use, we realised it would have to have vigorous testing and vigorous authenticity. So yeah, cyber security, I think we probably spent about 6 months reviewing this, getting it appraised, etc. So yeah, to reach the result where we are now. Yes, the main thing with the city, we were saying about the security, the trust and reputation, but as we see ourselves as the financial capital of the world, so we did not want to be vulnerable or let ourselves down in the future with any sort of security issues or trust issues on there. So we want the new lighting and the new CMS and the new smart city installation to really reinforce the city's identity as a world-class business and financial centre, and that's how we'll be promoting this and pushing this forward.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, Andy, and I think that really helps set the stage for the project and your reasons for doing it. So thank you for that introduction.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if you stay on the line, we might have some questions for you at the end. But right now, we'll transition to Stuart Wilson. Stuart is the Director of Urban Control UK. He specializes in street lighting and CMS, Smart City Innovation and Business Development. Urban Control provides the platform for the City of London smart streetlights. Stuart has a strong background in the UK construction and lighting industries, and he's professionally experienced in both consulting and contracting. So great to have you here today, Stuart. And Stuart is going to introduce the technology used for this project and the partnerships used in delivering the City of London Streetlight project. So welcome, Stuart.
Thank you very much. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to say thanks for the opportunity to join this webinar. It's great to see the work being undertaken by CUI and the LS Network. It all looks very exciting and interesting, and I'll definitely look at some of the websites later. So this is just really a short presentation to introduce urban control and where we've sort of developed from, but also to share with you some of the trends that we've noticed in the IoT smart city arena, and how we've taken those trends to assist and partner with the City of London to ensure that they get the right system to meet their requirements, and also the future proofing. So in terms of urban control, we are a very new company. We were founded in 2016. We're a sister company to DW Windsor Lighting, who traditional and LED lantern manufacturer based in the UK with over 40 years experience. 2016 was a good year because we were founded, but we also won our first CMS contract with the London Borough of Brent, which was for 21,000 CMS nodes. That project was delayed through procurement, but is currently on site at the moment and progressing well. 2017 saw us pick up some other contracts, mainly the City of London, which was by far the most important contract to us. And through our relationship with the City of London, we're really looking forward to delivering a successful project. With these contracts in place, we had the opportunity to invest and acquire a technology company. So we invested in a company called Enlight SCD. And with that, that gives us a development and innovation centre in Porto, where we can take customers' requirements and like the City of London, when they ask for sensors and they ask for additional data, we can take that over to Porto. We can develop the sensors as well as using our ecosystem with through our open network. So, lastly, just this year, we've launched a Zarga node for people that know the technology around drivers. Philips are probably one of the biggest driver manufacturer. Philips, as well as other companies, have released a SR sensor ready driver, which means that we can use a Zarga compliant base to our node and take the power from the driver. So it's a DC node. So we're very proud of that. In terms of the City of London, as I say, we have got a strong relationship with the City of London. We started the trial process with them back in 2016. And the City of London have really helped urban control develop and form by listening to their requirements and their challenges and their needs. It's helped us develop urban control as a smart city IoT provider. So the joint vision really was to deploy a central management system to help with the energy saving and the flexibility around street lighting control, but also to lay foundations really to enable the City of London to take the journey further. The smart city IoT arena, we're not sure what's around the corner, but by ensuring that you have the right foundations, you can build upon the network and the functionality to meet future requirements. So in terms of that, the sort of key enablers that we looked at with the City of London was, again, this bottom-up approach. We see big organisations entering into the smart city arena. They sort of approach it from a top-down approach. They feel that they can, for lots of money, they can come in and provide solutions to cities and urban environments. Whereas we feel through the trend and the business development we do, that the customer doesn't necessarily want this top-down approach. They want specific requirements met. So we take the approach of a bottom-up approach by focusing on the city's current requirements, but also, as I said before, building on this foundation of the network and the trend that we're seeing in the industry at the moment is we can build on the foundations by providing this open and interoperable system. So partnering with Itron, we look at this sort of technology, and we can provide this open and interoperable standards, which I'll cover a bit more in the presentation, but it also opens up the ecosystem to allow for future developments. I know Brian's on this webinar as well from Itron, and Brian will go into a little bit more detail around the network technology, and that also reinforces the challenges that Andy described in the environment and these urban canyons in the City of London. So, and lastly, really was partnering with the City of London, and we feel the City of London are a partner to us, as well as their contractors, JB Riney. And by working together, we can look at the risk of delivering such a big project, large project, important project for the City of London, by making sure that we've got the right technology, we've got the right risk allocation. Risk is a big factor in a project like this, especially in a built-up environment as such as the City of London. And by ensuring that we can share the risk, and the risk is positioned with the right partner, we can deliver a successful project. So before I mentioned about open-based standards, and we quite like the analogy that I'm going to show on this slide here. And if we consider open-based standards, you can sort of look at 4 different facets of this. It's around the technology, it's around innovation. How can people innovate with open-based standards? And vendor. So a lot of proprietary systems have vendor lock-in. With an open system, we want to be able to open up the system and the development kits to third parties, so that anyone can develop, not just the people that work for the company. So if we look at the analogy of the mobile phone industry, we have BlackBerry and Nokia. These looking at the cellular technology, these guys were really 10, 15 years ago were the top players in that sort of industry. And if we compare their technology with the 4 facets down below, we can see that the technology was trusted. Everyone trusted BlackBerry and Nokia, but the problem was they were proprietary systems. So it sort of restricted innovation. It restricted this vendor buy-in. Whereas nowadays, with the new technology and this focus on this open-based standards, we can see the likes of Google and Apple. They have really opened up this marketplace against trusted technology, but it promotes this innovation by other people, so anyone can develop, and vendor buy-in. So it's a really key thing there. And this is one of the trends that we've noticed in the sort of IoT and smart city arena. And we was able to present this to the City of London to ensure that they could future-proof their investment, really. So in terms, what does that actually mean, this open-based standard? It can, and it says it here, really, that we can connect any device. So by working with third-party vendors, by developing software development kits, and also hardware development kits, we can open up the marketplace. And a great example of this is dealing with Andy and his other colleagues in the City of London, and looking at other use cases and going out to the market and finding suppliers that have a solution already, or sensor or camera already, that we can integrate onto our network, onto Itron's network. So a great example of that is something like a radiation sensor. The City of London have got a ring of steel around London, which is there to stop terrorism. We can go to a third party and ask them supply radiation sensors that we can install onto our network and give that extra functionality and build on that foundation of the network to provide the City of London. And yeah, these are just some of the examples that we're working on at the moment, and that we're developing, but also that we can get from third-party companies. So again, looking at open standards, we've got to we would promote, and the trend is definitely around open networks, but also around open software. So open standards, especially in CMS, in the CMS world, the sort of key organisation that's pushing open standard is the TALC consortium. These guys are really driving forward a global sort of standard for central management systems, which is in its infancy. but it's been developed constantly, and we can now see that there's at least 3 or 4 companies that have got this TELC accreditation. So in the ideal world, it again comes away from this vendor lock-in, in that you can buy a system, CMS system, that will talk to other companies or other network devices and sensors to really open up the smart city in the IoT arena. Again, I mentioned it before about the open and interoperability of systems. Software nowadays, you can talk via APIs, which allow integration into other applications. So the City of London, for example, they use a separate asset management system, which manages their works orders, their asset condition, their asset surveys. And we can, through these APIs, we can integrate those 2 systems together, so that the works orders, the CMS system, can pick up a failure or fault in a street lighting or connected asset, and that can talk to their asset management system and automatically creates a works order to instruct their contractors to go out and fix the problem. So in terms of software, this is the last slide really. Whereas we've got the open network, we can add any device. With an open-based software, we can add any feature. So again, not necessarily Urban Control would add that feature. We've got software development kits, and we can promote external parties and developers access to our system so that they can develop these features. And again, this really builds on the foundations that we lay in the City of London, and to develop future aspects of the system. So yeah, that's me done. Hope you found that interesting.
Okay, yeah, definitely. That was very interesting. Thanks so much, Stuart. Yeah, great to hear your thinking around the technology solution that was employed for City of London, and the importance of open standards and interoperability. Appreciated your conversation there. So yeah, if any questions for Stuart, please feel free to type them in the chat window, and we'll proceed now to introduce Brian McGuigan. So Brian is the Commercial Director Europe for Smart City Solutions at Itron, which recently merged with Silver Spring Networks. Brian has over 10 years experience in tech-focused global business in the smart energy, smart city, and healthcare industries. And so we're really pleased to have Brian here today to talk about some more about some of the challenges and opportunities for this project in the City of London. And also he'll provide some other global examples. So welcome, Brian.
Thank you very much, and thank you also to everyone who's dialed in today. Today I was going to drill down into some of the areas that have been touched on already, just to look at how we helped collaborate with the city and with Urban Control to address some of these specific challenges that we saw in the City of London. So as Andy very clearly outlined earlier, the city is a very challenging place from an RF perspective. You know, the combination of kind of winding narrow lanes, the construction materials, and the dense canyons, as were discussed, pose some real challenges from an RF, from a radio perspective. And you can see here some lights in quite hard to reach locations in the city. And this was something that the city highlighted to us from the outset, and they'd experienced challenges before. And so we recognized that the best way to tackle this particular challenge was through mesh network technology. And we selected the WiSUN standard, which is the leader, the global leader in outdoor mesh networks. And the city had been very clear throughout our dialogue that they wanted to leverage global standards throughout the solution, both to increase the options they had in terms of vendors, but also then to de-risk the solution across its life. And WiSUN for us was the obvious choice, really due to its performance in these challenging environments, its inherent resilience, and its ability to support additional use cases beyond lighting. So some of you might be familiar with mesh technology already, but to kind of give a kind of quick overview, most of the networks that we interact with on a daily basis are star networks. So that would be things like Wi-Fi or cellular for your mobile phone. And in those star networks, each device has to talk directly to the base station or the gateway device. And as we all know from Wi-Fi in our home, if there's not coverage in a particular area, you either have to move the device or you have to add more base stations or repeaters. Mesh networks are different, where because in a mesh network, every device acts as a repeater for every other device. And so this allows them to achieve very high levels of coverage and also very high levels of resilience, making it very well suited to fixed assets in this kind of scenario. And the probably the easiest way for me to kind of describe to you how these work is to show you. So I have a Google Earth view here of the City of London, which I can zoom into here. And so here we have the City of London, a rather murky looking River Thames, and these are the streetlights as they are, 12,000 lights across the city. And the way that the network operates is each device will be given a radio, and that is in the form of a controller which sits inside the luminaire or on top of the luminaire depending on the particular requirements. And then in addition to that, there are a small number of access points or gateways, and these are the kind of bridge for us on and off of this network. And what I'll do is I'll turn on the mesh links here that will illustrate kind of the predicted paths of communication. And what you can see is that some lights will talk directly to an access point, but others will actually hop through other nodes to reach that access point. And the mesh technology that we use through the YSUN solution is called described as a self-forming and self-healing technology. And actually, while this actually was from a network design, so this is where our network engineers looked at the topology and locations and predicted mesh, the mesh paths that would occur. The reality is the network itself is self-organizing, and each device chooses its own path, and therefore, in practice, it doesn't ever look quite as even and uniform as this. So I'll actually jump to a different deployment to show you what it looks like in practice. So if we fly across the water now to Copenhagen, we can see here, this is the city of Copenhagen, where the same technology platform is used to connect 20,000 streetlights and a number of other traffic management assets across the city. And the red squares here represent the access points that I described. And if I now turn on the lighting points, you can see these are all the devices across the city. So most of these are streetlights, but some of these are traffic signal controllers or sensors watching bike lanes and various other devices that Copenhagen have installed over the last 3 years. And the self-forming nature of the mesh network means that if a new device is added, for example here, if you can see the mouse, when it's powered up, it will first of all find all of its neighbors, and the line of sight between two radios can be up to 15 kilometers in free space. Obviously in a city that will come down due to buildings or trees, but you still might find several hundred neighbors, and the new device will automatically select the best two paths. Each device carries a score of its strength of connection to an access point, and it will go through its authentication process, and if it's an authorized device, it will be allowed to join the network. So that's the self-forming part of the network. The self-healing is actually that every few minutes throughout the day, each device will double check that it still has the best two paths. And so the mesh will actually constantly reshape and reform, responding to changes in the environment, whether those are, we might expect in spring when the leaves come back onto the trees, that might affect how the mesh wants to form. If a multi-story car park is built in 5 years' time in part of the city, that might also change the paths that are desired. And so that kind of constant evolving automated nature is how you achieve very high levels of resilience, because if there's short-term issues like power outages or traffic works or otherwise, the network will respond automatically. So if I turn on the mesh routes, this is a view of the mesh routes that were on a particular day. You can see here, this was the 12th of the 5th last year, and it's slightly less organized than the network design, but shows you actually what it looks like in practice, one of these networks. And one of the interesting parts to see here is this area of the city is actually a separate lighting authority, and that's why there's no assets there. But you can see from the mesh links that actually they effectively have full coverage for connectivity there, because you can see these links happily jumping across the 5-kilometre gap there. So hopefully that gives you a kind of quick overview of how the mesh technology works, and helps explain why it helped tackle some of the challenges that City of London had found. So the second area that I wanted to look at was security, and as Andy mentioned, this is something that's a real priority for the city, and something that they apply to really all of their infrastructure projects, lighting being no exception. And this was something very encouraging for us to see. Silver Spring Networks and Itron have both come from a smart grid background, where the bar set by utilities in terms of security is very high, but we've seen quite a mixed approach from cities, and particularly lighting procurements around the world, with a real variety of kind of understanding and prioritization of security. And that's very likely partly driven because very few cities today actually have a CTO or CIO in place who might consider a global view of security and how it should be applied to every service, and that can leave some departments without experience in that area fending for themselves. So it was very encouraging to see the priority that the City of London placed here due to the capabilities they have. And there are now many examples of the reason we think this is important is we see kind of every month examples of why of where infrastructure has been compromised for one reason or another, and it's often said, why would someone want to hack a street lighting system, or why would someone want to compromise an air quality sensor system? But our experience is the truth is that people will always find a reason to do so, even if it is just for their own entertainment. And security is very hard to retrofit, and therefore something that we think it has to be considered up front. And that was certainly something that City of London did. And they set out very detailed requirements, and they requested comprehensive information on the technology, the policies, protection against a range of specific attacks, and proof of actual, proof in practice of penetration testing and such like. And so that's what we provided to them there, setting out a layered approach to security. And again, largely that's driven by using leading standards from relevant industries, whether that's financial or defense, for areas such as authentication, encryption, key rotation, all these different aspects that will build up a layered security approach from end to end, right from the devices which will wipe themselves if they're tampered with, through to the firmware upgrade system with birth certificates to ensure that it's authenticated firmware images, or anti-jamming technology to make sure that in the field the wireless system performs. So that was something, as Andy said, that the city very much pushed us hard on, and looked for a lot of evidence on that part. So the final area to talk about is how to demonstrate that we support multi-applications, and this is something that Stuart touched on earlier on. And today we've worked with cities around the world to connect up a broad range of use cases, and we were able to give those examples. But one of the important messages is that every city we have worked with has brought something new, some new application or device, company or challenge that they wanted to solve. And so the process about how you can tackle those and enable those over time is really as important as the current list of applications that you support today. And so I've got just two case studies to quickly go through that will hopefully illustrate some of the range of how that's done and the different approaches that cities are taking. So Glasgow is a great example of a city that's seeking a really integrated and open system right across the council. In 2014, they won £24 million from the UK government to build what was called the Future City Demonstrator. And that included a new operations centre with upgraded CCTV, an open data platform which provided access to hundreds of data feeds to developers, citizens and universities, and also 4 demonstrators. And we provided the intelligent street lighting demonstrator within that. And the scope of that was at 3 sites around the city to connect up new LEDs to achieve energy saving, but also to connect a range of sensors to those. So that included traffic cameras that were monitoring vehicle flow and pedestrian flow, and then adjusting the lighting in real time to based on the current conditions. Also air quality sensors and noise sensors that were gathering information on the environment there as well. And that project was delivered through a range of partners that manufactured the sensors, the software, the analytics, and all of that came together in this project here. And we were able to use the APIs from the software to share that data into the open data platform and make that available to the wider network of developers and potential users in the city of Glasgow. And the project itself ran for 1 year, but part of that is they developed this kind of list of use cases that they want to now look to explore. So that included, for example, helping electric vehicle drivers find spaces in the city that were available for them to charge, helping emergency services to giving them some control over the lighting so that they could help first responders, or also to monitor taxi queue length, to automate sending of cars to improve efficiency or tackle antisocial behaviour as well. So my final slide is regarding Miami and Florida, which is perhaps less about multi-applications and more about those unexpected requirements that I mentioned. So this project is, we believe, the largest intelligent street lighting project in the world, with over 500,000 lights connected, and we also connect millions of smart meters and smart grid devices on the same network. But even considering that scale, we spent a huge amount of time discussing 737 of those lights, which happen to be in turtle breeding areas. Some of you might know from that turtle hatchlings will use the moon to find the sea when they're born, and street lighting, if it is too bright, can confuse that and in fact lead turtles onto the road, which doesn't end well for anyone. And so FPL, the utility involved, have a very close relationship with the Environmental Agency, and so this was a really key priority for them to resolve. And so we were able to build a custom application which enabled the Environmental Agency to program the breeding cycle for the turtles in for that particular year, and then the lights will automatically adjust. And I always think this is a great example of a custom feature that was absolutely crucial for this particular customer and this particular city, but might not be relevant anywhere else. And I guess echoing the message that Stuart gave earlier, the ability to enable cities and partners and other people to get involved in customizing these systems, we believe is the way that will ultimately give the most scalable overall approach and ensure that cities can use these systems to meet their specific needs. So I'll hand back to Alanna now and look forward to questions shortly.
Okay, thanks so much, Brian. That was a really informative presentation, and yeah, the Google Earth demonstration was a wonderful explanation of the message technology, so thank you for that. So we'll move on right now to Alanna. Alanna Coombes works on programs that aim to future-proof the heart of London's business and financial district, and leads the Smart City corporate program that harnesses the power of tech to deliver on the city's priorities. As part of the City of London's aim to be outward-looking and collaborative, Alanna has been working with us here at the Canadian Urban Institute, contributing to our work on smart city strategies and smart street lighting. So great to have you here, Alanna, and she'll be talking about how the City of London will leverage this technology for future smart city initiatives.
Thank you, Amanda. I just wanted to finish up really with a few slides just to explain a little bit about how we're taking forward the smart side of the new streetlights. So as Andy said, when we set out to design the new system, we wanted really to be able to complement other objectives of the corporation. And I think it's quite easy to be a little bit dazzled by the sensors that are out there, and the kind of clever technology that's out there, and sort of the big promise of big data. So we've really tried to remain focused on our corporate priorities as set out in our corporate plan, and to think really about how sensors can help us achieve those corporate objectives. So as part of the development of our smart city strategy, I've been bringing people together from across the corporation and also from City Police as well. And we're looking at the ambitions that are set out in a number of our strategies, and this is just a few of them there, to establish what data we really do need to meet the objectives in these strategies, and therefore what sensors we need to collect this data. So as we sort of mentioned earlier, some of the sensors we're potentially looking at are ones around further pollution sensors, but also sensors for noise, for gunshots, and for pedestrian flow. So ones really that can help us achieve our environmental and resilience ambitions. So for us, this lighting project is partly about street lighting, but it's also about livability, and it's about attracting the best global talent to the City of London. We are already a very safe, reliable and very livable city, but in a globally competitive market, you kind of need to really run to keep up. So our ambition really is to use the new street lighting system to make sure that we do even better, and that we remain the best place in the world to do business, outside of Canada, of course.
Okay, that was great. Thanks so much, Alanna. It's helpful to understand the broader context and objectives of the project, so appreciate that. So we just have a few minutes for questions, but if you have them, please feel free to enter them into the chat window. And we've had a couple here that we'll start with, and we'll answer as many as we can. Start with the easiest one. There was a question, will the recording be made available? And yes, it will be available on our lsnetwork.org website. So if you missed any part of this, please feel free to check that. First question we received is a question around security. So the question was, has there been any public concern about the privacy with respect to sensors, use of cameras, or Wi-Fi? So does anyone want to respond to that?
Yeah,
potentially Brian. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Andy here. We're actually doing a public consultation as well, because we're going to be involving a new lighting strategy in the city. And we have had sort of a couple of questions ourselves about security of smart city, but each time we reassure the member of public the stringent procedures we've gone through, of the testing and the requirements we've met on the security side. And I think they've all gone away happy, really, because I think they can tell by the way from our answers and how in depth we've gone that it is a situation we've taken clearly very strongly.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Andy. And Brian, maybe in the other cities you've worked with, have you seen security concerns from citizens, and how did you deal with that, if that's something you've encountered?
Yeah, well, I think it's certainly both security and data privacy is something that crops up for virtually every city that's exploring these. And I think there's a couple of aspects to it. One, or certainly that worth commenting on. I think we do see more of a push to run what's described as edge intelligence. So, for example, in the case of video analytics, there's much more support for cameras that are that are analysing the data feed on the camera itself, and then sending up metadata that doesn't contain any personal information. So that might be vehicle count or number of pedestrians that have walked past, rather than sending the raw video footage. I think that's something that people have been shown to be more comfortable with. And so I think we're likely to see an increase in that in kind of more intelligent edge devices. And I think, though, crucially, this always comes back to what the value and perceived value is for the citizens. You know, I think we'll all acknowledge that we give huge amounts of personal data away to Facebook and Google and other providers, and that's because we value the service that we get back in return, and we trade that off. And I think in each smart city consideration, that often is what it comes back to, because people will share where they feel it's a fair exchange, but if it's really just sharing information without much value back to them, or unclear what the value is, then that's when concerns become more vocal.
Okay, great. Thanks for that response. Very helpful. We have another question here, which maybe we'll direct to Stuart. Could you tell us a little more about the time frame? When will the rollout be finished and the whole system running? Specifically for City of London.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, the rollouts of the CMS rollout's actually being carried out in coordination with LED replacement. So it's probably one for Andy to really answer, really, because it ties in with their funding profiles. We're working closely with the lantern manufacturer and the contractor to ensure that we can provide the equipment to meet their program. But I don't know, Andy, if you want to make a comment on that.
Yeah, we're looking at a 2-year program. So first year we will complete our major routes and our secondary roads and streets through the city. While we're working on the first year, where with LED lanterns and the new CMS, the Smart City system, what we will be doing then is reviewing all our smaller size streets, our little alleyways and footpaths, and we'll be looking at exactly the type of lantern and, more significantly, the type of lighting levels and the colour temperature of the lanterns that we're going to put in there. So we'll be ready then. We complete the first year of the installation, and then for the second year we'll be doing the more niche areas, but we are looking at definitely completing in 2 years' time. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
thanks, Andy.
If I can just add on to that, it's quite peculiar to the UK, but the street lighting energy costs, they're based on an unmetered supply. So although the project is taking 2 years to complete, through working with the City of London and their meter administrator, we've managed to implement a system so they can realise the energy savings from the installations as soon as possible. You know, as soon as they're installed, they can actually claim the energy savings through the system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's a great point. Thank you. We have one more question just came in for Brian. The question is, how do you share lessons learned around business intelligence with other cities which have not appointed a chief risk officer? I don't know if you any thoughts come up around that question.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult question, because actually what tends to happen, or what our experience has been, is if cities haven't appointed a formal CTO or CIO, there quite often can be one or two people who've almost been earmarked with some form of responsibility in that area, and they can actually come from any department in the city. Often you'll find, you know, this is our smart city expert, and they could come from the lighting team actually very often if they're running a procurement, or it could be someone for environmental services or otherwise. And you know, we'll work with them and kind of invite them to perhaps discuss with other cities we've worked with, to kind of raise their knowledge and perhaps highlight issues that might be on their agenda or might not. So yeah, I think in a way the cities are generally much more interested in hearing from other cities or utilities or other people who've been through the process, rather than they understandably will take what we tell them as a vendor with some pinch of salt, and want to hear firsthand what the challenges are and how that works in practice. So we're very happy to kind of make those introductions and facilitate those.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So that's all the time we have for today. But I just wanted to thank again our speakers, Andy, Stuart, Brian, Alanna, and thank you to all of you for joining us here today. It's been really great to hear about the City of London's project, and hopefully learn some from their project that others can implement. One of the things we really are focused on is sharing lessons learned, and I think there's a lot we can learn from City of London. So thank you very much, everyone. And please check out our website, canurb.org, for information about upcoming events, and the link to today's webinar if you'd like to watch it again. So thanks very much, everyone, and have a great day. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.